From the water, we were able to observe damage that we could not see from a distance.
You can see how the blast has torn through here, ripping the walls off, buckling the structure.
I had no idea these catastrophic fails were this expensive. From ships sinking to huge explosions and nuclear disasters, these are some of the most expensive fails in human history. Titanic. Let's kick things off with a more well-known, expensive failure. I am, of course, talking about the infamous Titanic. This nasty ship has even claimed more lives in recent years. Well, guess what? It didn't sink because the stewards were busy peeking at Jack and Rose making out. The facts are a bit different from the movie. You see, the sinking of the RMS Titanic was one of the deadliest peacetime maritime disasters in history. As we all know, the ship collided with an iceberg on the night of April 14, 1912. This event tragically resulted in the deaths of approximately 1,500 people, mainly because there weren't enough lifeboats on the ship. Considering that the engineers who built the ship called it indestructible, they probably took it literally and skimped out on the lifeboats. The ship cost $7.5 million to make. This amount is equivalent to a whopping $200 million today. While the collision with the iceberg was the primary cause of the sinking, multiple theories explore why the iceberg wasn't detected in time to avoid the disaster. A popular theory suggests that the ship's lookouts were not equipped with binoculars, which might have enabled them to spot the iceberg sooner. And then, there are some researchers who propose that atmospheric conditions might have created a mirage effect that night. On the other hand, a theory proposes that Titanic was the largest passenger ship at the time, and the crew might not have been fully accustomed to its maneuvering and stopping capabilities. This might have led to a delayed response once the iceberg was sighted. Another theory goes that the lack of moonlight and the unusually calm sea that night made it more difficult to see the iceberg. Whatever the reason was, this incident will always be remembered as one of the most messed up and expensive failures of mankind. MV Golden Ray. The MV Golden Ray was a massive car carrier ship that capsized on September 8, 2019, only 23 minutes after leaving the port of Brunswick. The Golden Ray was huge. And when I say huge, I mean it's a 660-foot car carrier, 116 feet wide, with a gross tonnage of 71,000. It was built in the Hyundai dockyard in South Korea and could carry up to a mind-blowing 7,400 cars. The ship was powered by a single diesel engine and had 24 fuel tanks carrying 300,000 gallons of fuel. On its fateful journey, the Golden Ray was transporting approximately 4,300 cars to the Middle East, with its immediate destination being the port of Baltimore. It left Georgia around midnight, but started to list shortly after departure and eventually capsized in St. Simon's Sound. Thankfully, all 23 crew members and the captain were rescued, with the Coast Guard having to save 4 of them after the accident. The ship's full fuel tanks and the thousands of cars on board, filled with diesel, gas, and antifreeze, sparked significant environmental concerns. Crews began pumping fuel out by the end of September, but were initially able to empty only 2 tanks. Salvaging the ship proved to be a massive and costly undertaking. Extensive fire and water damage rendered the Golden Ray a total loss, estimated at $80 million. The salvage operation, which involved cutting the ship into sections and took until September 26, 2021 to complete, was estimated to cost around $840 million. During this process, almost 20,000 pounds of debris were recovered from the area. The final report on the incident attributed the capsizing to several factors, including incorrect numbers entered into the ship's stability calculation. That's quite an expensive fail caused by bad math. Everggiven. In the world of oops, that was expensive, the saga of the Everggiven takes the cake. This 400-meter-long behemoth of a container ship, capable of carrying over 200,000 containers, became a household name in March 2021, but for all the wrong reasons. Imagine trying to navigate a gigantic floating building through a waterway that's less than 213 meters wide, in bad weather, no less. That's what Captain Krishnan Kantaval faced on March 23, 2021, in the Suez Canal. This Egyptian shortcut is crucial for ships voyaging from Europe to South Asia, shaving off about 7,000 kilometers from the journey. But as we all learned, size and bad weather don't mix well in tight spaces. The Everggiven, caught in high winds and poor judgment, ended up wedged in the canal like a cork in a bottle. The result? A logistical nightmare. Over a dozen tugboats, Komatsu excavators, and a whole lot of head-scratching were involved in the 6-day-long effort to free this stuck giant. The cost of this maritime blunder was no drop in the ocean. With more than $400 million worth of goods held up per hour, the total trade loss rocketed to a jaw-dropping $31.5 billion. And let's not forget the $900 million in damages the court ordered the ship's owners to cough up. That's a total of around $32.4 billion for a 6-day mishap. Krishnan Kantaval, the gorgeous Egyptian captain of the ship, was deemed responsible, but it was the employers who had to dig deep into their pockets to pay for this costly calamity. LV Pepcon. When you think of Las Vegas, Nevada, you probably envision dazzling lights, the nightlife, and high-stakes casinos, probably not massive explosions. However, Henderson, the state's second-largest city, gained notoriety in 1988 for something pretty explosive. You see, Henderson housed a massive chemical plant called Pacific Engineering and Production Company of Nevada, also known as Pepcon. Located 10 miles south of Las Vegas, this plant produced ammonium perchlorate, an essential ingredient for rocket boosters like those used on the space shuttle. On May 4, 1988, this scene of industrial serenity was about to change dramatically. It all started with a fire that would lead to a catastrophic blunder. A rogue spark from a blowtorch met fiberglass, and what followed was nothing short of a blockbuster movie scene, except it was terrifyingly real. The fire caused not one, but 2 massive explosions, powerful enough to erase the Pepcon plant and a neighboring marshmallow factory off the map. The blasts were so immense that they damaged buildings within a 1.5-mile radius, downed power lines, and transformed cars into twisted metal. The calamity claimed 2 lives and injured over 300 people, a sobering reminder of the disaster's severity. Captured by a cameraman from a safe distance, the explosions left an indelible mark on the city's history. The financial toll? A staggering $100 million in damages. Yeah, that's a lot. This is why we need OSHA people. Tianjin Explosion. On August 12, 2015, the city of Tianjin in China experienced a disaster straight out of an apocalyptic movie. Massive explosions ripped through the port city. They were so powerful that they registered as earthquakes and were visible from space. The cause? A fire in a warehouse storing a nightmare's worth of hazardous chemicals. We're talking about a storage facility chock full of sodium cyanide, sodium nitrate, and potassium nitrate substances that don't play nice with fire. Imagine thousands of tons of these volatile and explosive materials going up in flames. The result? Cataclysmic explosions equivalent to over 280 tons of TNT. The aftermath was heartbreaking. Nearly 200 lives were lost, and the destruction was widespread. Hundreds of buildings were leveled, and here's a mind-boggling fact. Around 26,000 brand new cars from brands like Renault, Volkswagen, and Hyundai were also destroyed. That's a car enthusiast's nightmare, but wait, the worst is yet to come. The warehouse was dangerously close to public buildings and facilities, way closer than the required 1 km safety distance. This meant locals were living in blissful ignorance of the ticking time bomb next door. Poor record-keeping added to the chaos, making it difficult to know exactly what was stored there. The financial toll? An astronomical $9 billion in supply disruption and an estimated $473 million in direct damages. The government stepped in, compensating families and promising to buy back damaged properties at 130% of their value. But the real kicker? 49 government officials were sentenced to prison for their roles in this disaster. Champlain Towers South. Let's go over to Florida real quick for another huge explosion. In the early hours of June 24th in 2021, a devastating event unfolded in Surfside, a small beachside town in Miami-Dade County. The Champlain Towers South, a 12-story complex, tragically collapsed, marking one of the most heart-wrenching incidents in recent times. Built in 1981, Champlain Towers South was part of a trio of L-shaped buildings, including the North and East Towers. It was the largest, housing 136 condos and a penthouse. At 1:14 a.m., as most residents slept, the unthinkable happened. The pool deck of the South Tower gave way, and within 8 minutes, the entire western wing collapsed. The toll was devastating. 98 lives were tragically lost, while 126 individuals had to be rescued from the debris. This collapse wasn't just a freak accident, it hinted at deeper issues. The New York Times reported potential flaws in the building's design and construction plans. The Miami Herald pointed to more alarming signs of neglect, including standing water, cracked concrete, and corroded rebar, particularly in the pool equipment room. The aftermath of this catastrophe saw various speculations, including allegations of corruption during the building's construction process. The human and monetary loss of this incident makes it one of the most expensive fails in history. Japanese container ships. We are back again with another ship. Seriously, why do so many of these meet disasters? In November 2020, a Japanese container ship named One Apus embarked on a voyage from Long Beach, California. Unfortunately, this journey would soon turn into one of the most significant maritime incidents in recent history. About 2,574 kilometers into the Pacific, the One Apus encountered a terrible storm, challenging even for a vessel designed to withstand harsh weather conditions. The intensity of the storm led to a catastrophic shift of the containers on the ship's deck. In a dramatic turn of events, the storm swept away 1,816 of the 14,000 containers the ship was carrying. This incident resulted in a staggering loss of over $200 million, ranking as the second largest cargo loss in shipping history. The aftermath of the disaster raised several questions and theories. Some speculated that the captain was aware of the approaching storm. But since he was under pressure to maintain a tight schedule, he may have underestimated the severity of the weather. Others pointed to the possibility of encountering abnormal giant waves, which even large ships like the One Apus are not equipped to withstand. Regardless, that's a lot of money drowned away in the depths of the ocean. I wonder if we can start a treasure hunt to recover some of it. Beirut Explosion. The Beirut Explosion on August 4, 2020, was a devastating event that had far-reaching consequences, both in terms of human lives and economic impact. For a country that's already struggling, this was a really bad stroke of misfortune. The whole tragedy can be traced back to a series of events that began in September 2013. A cargo ship carrying 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, a chemical compound commonly used in fertilizers, was detained in Beirut due to its inability to pay the Suez Canal toll. The Lebanese government subsequently seized the ship and its cargo, and the ammonium nitrate was stored in a warehouse at the port. Over the years, this highly explosive material sat there, neglected and unsecured. In 2020, in a dangerously irresponsible move, a batch of fireworks was stored next to the ammonium nitrate. On August 4th, a fire broke out in the warehouse, which set off a catastrophic chain reaction. Firefighters who arrived to tackle the blaze reported hearing strange sounds before the first of two major explosions occurred. Boom! The first blast, equivalent to about 2 tons of TNT, caused significant damage to the warehouse. However, it was just a precursor to a far more massive explosion 30 seconds later, which was likened to a small nuclear detonation. This second explosion, with the force of between 1,000 and 1,500 tons of TNT, was felt across countries and regions as distant as Turkey, Jordan, and parts of Europe. The blast claimed the lives of 218 people and caused approximately $15 billion in property damage. It occurred at a time when Lebanon was already grappling with a multitude of challenges, including a severe economic crisis, a high unemployment rate, and a struggling government. The explosion not only made international headlines, but also deepened the existing crises in Lebanon, leaving lasting scars on the city of Beirut and its people. Yeah, it's a sad state of affairs from every angle. Colombia. Man, whenever a rocket explodes, it just breaks my heart to see it happen. All those lives, effort, and resources put into the mission, gone in seconds. That is exactly what happened in the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. On February 1st, 2003, the shuttle was returning to Earth after a 16-day mission. But when re-entering the Earth's atmosphere, it just disintegrated, resulting in the loss of all 7 crew members on board. The root cause of the disaster was traced back to a critical incident that occurred shortly after Columbia's launch. A large piece of insulating foam broke off from the external tank and struck the shuttle's left wing. Upon re-entry, the damaged wing was unable to withstand the intense heat and pressure. Hot gases penetrated the heat shield, destroying the internal structure of the wing. This caused the shuttle to become unstable and eventually break apart. This event was not unprecedented, as NASA had previously observed foam shedding during other shuttle launches, sometimes causing minor to potentially catastrophic damage. However, the risk was not adequately addressed, leading to heavy scrutiny of NASA's decision-making and safety protocols. The investigation and cleanup efforts cost the government an estimated $400 million, and the destroyed shuttle itself was valued at around $2 billion. That is a lot of money to just go poof in the air, and the loss of life on top of that. 3 Mile Island. These nuclear plant incidents always scare the crap out of me. It's not the blasts, it's the aftermath. I don't need a Godzilla walking around my planet. 3 Mile Island Nuclear Generating Station began operations in 1978, and the very next year it encountered a serious accident on March 28th. At around 4 a.m., a mechanical failure in the plant's second reactor triggered a chain reaction that led to a partial meltdown of the reactor. This was exacerbated by malfunctioning water pumps, which were meant to cool the reactor. The alarm system at the plant also contributed to the confusion, as the same alarm sounds were used for multiple emergency situations. As you can guess, soon the radioactive gases were spreading into the surroundings, accompanied by a massive steam eruption from the plant. Despite the severity of the event, remarkably, there were no immediate injuries or deaths. And subsequent medical studies have not linked any health issues directly to the incident. Now that's a relief. The cleanup process for 3 Mile Island was extensive, taking 12 years and costing over $1 billion, which would be approximately $2 billion in today's money. Add the cost of the plant itself, and you have a multi-billion-dollar failure at hand. Songu Bridge collapse. On the morning of October 21, 1994, the Songu Bridge, a vital link between two bustling districts, faced a disaster of epic proportions. As the commuters were enjoying their ride across, suddenly, a 157-foot section of the bridge decided it had enough and took a 65-foot dive into the Han River below. Cars, minibuses, and a fully loaded bus joined this unexpected plunge. Now you'd think bridges are built strong, right? Well, this one had some skeletons in its closet, or should I say, some shaky foundations. People had already complained about the bridge giving them a weird swinging sensation, like being on a slow-motion roller coaster. Turns out, this was a huge red flag. The investigation found that the steel joints, which are basically the bridge's backbone, were welded with a thickness of only 8 millimeters instead of the sturdy 10 millimeters they were supposed to be. Imagine trying to hold a giant with toothpicks. To top it off, vehicles that were way heavier than the bridge's weight limit were using it as their daily runway. This engineering oopsie cost the State Council a whopping $185,000 in compensation to the victims. And the rebuild? That was another $2 million. Talk about an expensive mistake. Deepwater Horizon. Let's dive into a story that's less about striking it rich with oil and more about striking out. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill of 2010, a real-life drama with fire, explosions, and an environmental nightmare that Hollywood couldn't even dream up. About 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana, the Deepwater Horizon, an oil drilling rig, was out on a watery adventure, looking for black gold. But as they say, all that glitters is not oil. A massive blowout occurred, which is basically the Earth saying, "Nope, not today." A pocket of methane gas rushed up from the depths, causing an explosion and fire on the rig. 94 crew members were airlifted to safety, but tragically, 11 souls were lost, believed to have died in the explosion. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, the rig took a nosedive into the ocean after burning for over a day. The aftermath was like a horror movie for the environment. Around 38,000 barrels of oil per day gushed into the sea for 87 days straight. That's over 210 million gallons of oil, killing away marine life. BP, the company behind this oily disaster, had to plead guilty to 11 counts of manslaughter, and they were given the corporate equivalent of a timeout, being temporarily banned from new contracts with the US government. By 2018, the costs, charges, and penalties had racked up to over $65 billion for BP. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill is now a cautionary tale, a reminder that sometimes digging too deep can lead you to troubled waters. Deadly skyscrapers. Spring 2014 in London, a time of blooming flowers, chirping birds, and melting cars. Welcome to the tale of the walkie-talkie, a skyscraper that took hot property a bit too literally. Rising majestically at 525 feet, this shiny new addition to London's skyline was more than just a pretty face. It had a curve that could make even the most confident buildings jealous. But this architectural supermodel had a dark side. It was a solar death ray in disguise. As the summer sun beamed down, Londoners started noticing something was off. The building's south-facing, concave surface was acting like a giant magnifying glass, focusing sunbeams into a death ray. We're talking temperatures soaring to a scorching 70 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to cook an egg. Which, by the way, one journalist actually tried. This wasn't just about frying eggs, though. The heat beam was melting tiles, causing small fires, and even turned a Jaguar XJ owned by a local businessman into a sad, melty mess. This wasn't a building, it was a silent, shiny villain. The walkie-talkie, now rebranded as the walkie-scorchy, needed a superhero. Enter the brise-soleil, a fancy term for a sunshade. This permanent solution was installed between the 3rd and 34th floors, taking 6 months and costing a whopping $12 million. That's on top of the $250 million it already cost to build this shiny menace. Here's the kicker. The architect, Raphael Vignoli, had a bit of a history with this kind of mistake. He also designed the Vdara Hotel in Las Vegas, which earned the nickname Death Ray for similar reasons. So there you have it. Some of the most expensive fails ever. If you have any more stories for us, please do share in the comments section below. Also, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. See you in the next one.